The place where Gaza's stories are told becomes the story.
And the terror has come down. So that is a landmark, an institution that has now been razed to the ground in Gaza.
3 Israeli rockets destroying the 12-storey building used by television network Al Jazeera and the United States-owned news agency Associated Press. The journalists and camera crews had been given warning. This phone call from Israeli officials coming an hour before the blast. For 15 years, the tower's rooftop was the prime location for covering Israel's clashes with the Hamas militant group. Now the news crews will move elsewhere as the conflict begins to resemble a civil war.
Hostilities between Israel and Gaza have stretched into the 7th day as of now, as the unabated exchange of artillery continues along the Gaza Strip. Palestinian militants have fired back in barrages with their own rockets. Israel's military has also claimed to have bombed the house of a top Hamas leader, Khalil al-Hayy, which allegedly served as part of the Hamas infrastructure. Another strike on a 3-story building in the Shati refugee camp has killed 10 members of an extended family. Israel's army claimed that the building was used by senior Hamas officials. Palestinian militants responded with volleys of rockets into Israel, killing a man near Tel Aviv. Despite the rising death toll in the Gaza Strip, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel is taking special care to avoid any civilian casualties, since civilians are warned to vacate the buildings used by the Hamas terror intelligence.
The Israeli military has long touted its cutting-edge air defenses, with the Iron Dome, Arrow 3, Barak 8, and David's Sling designed to protect the country from threats ranging from small rockets to long-range ballistic and cruise missiles. However, the ongoing firefight with Hamas in Gaza has shown that no air defense system is perfect. The technical limitations of the Iron Dome, combined with the improving range and speed characteristics of Hamas rockets, are making it increasingly difficult for Israel's advanced air defenses to counter the militant group's attacks. The Iron Dome has several weaknesses, according to Taheri. First, the number of available systems is not enough to cover the whole of Israel, and therefore, in the event of a multi-front war, the system will not be able to respond to all rocket and missile attacks, and Israel's low-altitude air defenses will be extremely vulnerable. Second, he notes, the system is not able to intercept missiles or rockets fired from less than 4 kilometers away, meaning that the placement of enemy launchers at distances closer than this poses a serious threat to the system.
To Colombia now, where demonstrations against the government are intensifying. In one city, protesters set fire to a police facility after a 17-year-old detainee who claimed she'd been groped and harassed by officers committed suicide. Authorities say more than 40 people have died in 3 weeks of clashes between protesters and police.
The office of the so-called Immediate Reaction Unit police force in the city of Popayán set ablaze after allegations of abuse of a detainee who later took her own life. The alleged incident of abuse upped the ante for activists in cities like Bogotá. The protests actually started April 28th to oppose suggested tax increases on fuel, wages, and pensions.
More than 300 people have registered to run for Iran's presidency, with some of the big names leaving it until the last day to apply. A leading conservative contender, Ibrahim Raisi, lost out to Hassan Rouhani 4 years ago. After 2 terms in office, Rouhani is ineligible, and Raisi sees an opportunity. Since his involvement in the mass execution of political prisoners in the 80s, Raisi has reinvented himself as a populist. He's believed to be backed by the powerful Revolutionary Guard and faces opposition from more moderate politicians, particularly the centrist Ali Larijani. Larijani was crucial to the deal Iran struck with world powers in 2015, which curbed its nuclear weapons program.
Khayelitsha community is meeting with Cape Town Mayor Dan Plato. It follows deadly shootings in the area which left 11 people dead and several others seriously injured. Organised crime detectives are investigating the shootings and believe the attacks were in retaliation to the murder of a man earlier in the day.
Two more Zimbabwe journalists have been arrested. Advocacy group Media Alliance of Zimbabwe says it's worried by the continuous arrests and harassment of journalists just a few days after World Press Freedom Day. Editor of the Zim Morning Post website, Elias Mambo, and reporter Farai Machamire were taken into custody on Friday.
Elias Mambo and Farai Machamire were kept at the Harare Central Police Station. They were in custody for the whole of Friday before being charged with a criminal insult. That is after independent MP Themba Mliso accused the Zim Morning Post of defaming him. The website had published a story about Mliso's relationship with his ex-girlfriend. The journalists were later released with the police saying they will investigate further.
It was passed on the quiet, although it encroaches on fundamental rights. Germany has approved a law to regulate the appearance of civil servants, mainly prohibiting ideological and religious symbols at work. Many Muslims fear it will ultimately result in a headscarf ban. The law was passed with the votes of the far-right AfD, the Christian Union and the Social Democrats, but without any prior parliamentary or societal debate. The controversial legislation was introduced after the suspension of a police officer for wearing Nazi symbols. It primarily aims at restricting tattoos, jewelry and piercings.